Any second now. Okay, here we go. Barber Shop number 3. Everybody, welcome to the Barber Shop. This is our third installment of this live stream. And we call this the Barber Shop because, at least not me, but most people, when they sit with their barber, that's where you can talk about the world's problems and solve pretty much every one of the world's problems. I don't know if we can solve every one of the world's problems today, but I think we can solve a few real estate problems. And today we have special guest real estate lawyer Bart Saroka. And not only being an awesome real estate lawyer, he is a fantastic guy. And I think he's going to provide some awesome counterpoints to some of my thoughts and ideas through this show here. But Bart, introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure thing. I'm Bart Saroka. I have about as much use for a barber as Mr. Pfeiffer does. I am a lawyer here in Regina, Saskatchewan. I should preface this by saying that I am not going to answer any specific questions. I am not going to provide any legal advice. And you can also put a big old asterisk beside this if you think it counts as legal information. I know a little bit. I can discuss it with Mr. Pfeiffer, but if you have any specific questions, you should go hire a lawyer. Your circumstances are probably unique. But with that out of the way, I am excited to dig into this because if there's anyone that's ever needed to be countered on his points, it's Matt.
Well, I think we'll have some fun with that. And we do have a section here at the end. You can see it here, community questions. I've also got a what if section type of thing. So those will be near the end. But if you take a look at the bottom there, we're going to go through each one of these topics here. And the first topic that we are going to discuss is going to be the stress test, which is brand new June, not brand new, I guess, but a change to the stress test. So quick refresher for anybody that doesn't know what the stress test is. This was put in originally in 2016. It applied in 2017 to all buyers as well as anybody refinancing, that you had to prove you could pay higher interest rates. So you have to be able to prove that you can qualify with an interest rate that is 2% higher than your quoted rate. So if you were quoted 1%, you got that awesome HSBC 0.99% rate. You had to qualify 2% higher or whatever the benchmark rate was, whichever was higher. Right now, that is 4.79%. It is going up to 5.25%. This is not actually that shocking. It was over 5% in 2019, and I think even into 2020 as well. The changes, besides it going up, the other big one is that instead of it now being the average of the big 5 banks posted rate, it is now going to be set by the government of Canada, and they are going to review it once a year. So I think it's going to be every December they are going to review it, and then it is going to be posted what the qualification rate is. So that's kind of the big changes. My thoughts are on it. This is only about a 5.5% difference in terms of reduction in buying power. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference. When they first put it in 2016, it dropped your buying power by about 20%. That was a massive difference. So, Bart, what do you think here?
I think that a lot of what we're seeing with this is trying to use the wrong weapons to beat the problem. I don't think we've got a big crisis in the country of people defaulting on their mortgages and not being able to pay higher interest rates on their mortgages. Maybe somewhere out there that exists, but at the end of the day, making it harder for people to buy their first houses or to qualify just out of school or to get themselves into the market seems like a really bad way to encourage people to get their first homes, get out of their parents' house, get into the actual economy proper.
Yeah, first of all, BH, thank you for checking in as well. Yeah, I got the NASCAR set up on the headset here. This is the only headset I could find to work. I was doing test runs last night. Everything else didn't work. But yes, I think you're 100% right there. You hit that one, the nail on the head there, Bart, in terms of this punishes first-time homebuyers more than anybody else. Those are the ones that have the slimmest margins and are having the toughest time entering the market. So yeah, I think it's not the right tool, and you're right, we're not seeing a huge rash of defaults and foreclosures. The last numbers available, which these are fairly old now because I haven't been able to find anything newer, was about the delinquency rate. So that's people who are 90 days or more delinquent, they have not been paying their mortgages, has to get reported. That was 0.25% of all mortgages. Saskatchewan, our province here, was the highest at 0.8% of all mortgages. To put it in perspective, just before the crash in the US market there in 2008, they were hovering around 3.5% delinquency rates. And that 0.8% in Saskatchewan represents approximately 1,000 mortgages. So it's not like it is a substantial amount of people that are delinquent, let alone even in the foreclosure process.
Mhm.
So,
I did start that off by reading ahead and making sure you'd say I was right. So here's the actual counterpoint to that. We are in a time of historically low interest rates. I think that's been true for quite some time now. And we do have a lot of pencil pushers who may or may not know what's actually happening, saying that there's a housing bubble. Now, they've been saying there's a housing bubble for a long, long time now. But if the goal is to prevent a problem 5 years down the line when we get to interest rates that aren't, hovering around 0, 1%, then this might be the tool for the job. But I haven't seen any messaging about that. And truthfully, if that's the intent, it's not been communicated particularly well.
yeah, I think the idea behind this originally was to reduce a buyer's purchasing power in an effort to slow down the Torontos and Vancouvers of our market here so people could spend less, they couldn't bid up prices. That was the idea. I think it was very much a sledgehammer to a problem that needed a scalpel. And Sojourner, thanks for jumping in. Glad you could catch the live stream. So, anything else you want to wrap it up here before we move on to the next one here, Bart? Any last kind of thoughts on it here? I know you had one note in here in the show notes.
Yeah.
Bidding up
So
properties.
yeah, building on what you said, it doesn't strike me that this reduction of buying power is hitting the people in your Torontos and your Vancouvers that are bidding over asking by six-figure dollar amounts. It's hitting your people in Regina,
Yep.
who now need to put away, another $7,000-8,000 in order to hit the stress test, or they're going to be paying money not towards their mortgage, not towards their investment, but to some third party, so that they're what could have been a 10% ratio mortgage. They ended up at 8, so they have to go down to 5.
Yeah.
And now that money, instead of going to that investment, is going to whatever organization earns that cash.
Yeah.
So if that was the point of doing it, again, I don't necessarily think that it was the right tool or properly implemented. I should say I've got a degree from the University of Regina in economics, teeny tiny bit about this kind of thing from years and years ago. I'm not just popping off the cuff on it.
You might know a couple of things here. So with the stress test out of the way, let's jump to the next topic. Now, this was a BNN article, and it was really interesting that the tagline was the second largest country in the world is running out of land. And I'll put the link here. I should actually throw it in the chat so you guys can take a look at this one here. But what I thought was really interesting was talking, not necessarily that we're running out of land with the second largest land mass in the world, but when 90+% of the land in Canada is north of the Arctic Circle, that maybe seems a little bit more deceptive to say we have the largest land mass in the world to live in. But what basically the gist of the article was, the lack of building for what buyers are wanting to buy and the inability to build what buyers want to buy. So in Toronto, this was from last year, and I think you could say these numbers will follow through very much through the rest of the country, but about 60% of all home sales were single family homes. The same year, new construction starts was only 20% of that was the single family home market. So, and we saw that here with the shifting demographics through the pandemic. People wanted bigger houses, or houses, they didn't want to be in apartments anymore. And now we were already in a situation where we were low in inventory for those. And that's what this causes absolute skyrocket in single family homes. So Bart, while you jump on that, I'll put this in the chat group here so people can read this article real quick.
That's a great idea. I'm going to let you know, you're cutting a little bit in and out for me. It's blaming my internet connection.
Okay.
I think I got most of it. If the chat is having trouble hearing me, let me know, and I'll try and find a better connection. But I'm going to play with a couple of buttons right now just to see if I can't make it better. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, good. I believe I may have made it worse.
As well as Sojourner, yes, I think you are 100% right talking about how sometimes the federal government thinks Canada is made up only Ontario and Vancouver. I couldn't agree more that sometimes you do see that where policy gets focused on those two centers there. So there is the article there. You guys can check that one out if you want to read that. But that was the article. So
And
Bart,
it's not just the feds that run into this. Everything is Toronto and Vancouver. I mean, this Bloomberg article, I think, is real proof of that issue. We're not really running out of land to build houses on. We're running out of land near Toronto. We're running out of land near Vancouver. Speaking of land, I should say I'm standing on Treaty 4 territory right now, but Regina has plenty of place to still be built. Saskatoon has plenty of place to still be built.
and yet we still have a
We
lot of the
also,
same problems where we are not building a lot of single family homes. And yeah, Toronto's hemmed in with the green belt. Vancouver, you got hemmed in with a lot of physical boundaries, US border, mountains, and a very large ocean. So that makes things difficult. But not even that. I mean, just look at Regina. If you want to build a single family home close to downtown, that isn't an option. There was a offer that I wrote on a place where likely sale price was going to be about $300,000 to knock down a house because of the neighborhood. It's only 5 minutes from downtown. For those not from our area, $300,000 for a piece of land is an awful lot of money. That would be more equivalent to probably a million and a half in a Toronto or a Vancouver just to knock down a house. So yeah, we can't build single family homes, and we've got a culture that people would like to live in a house with the fenced in yard for the dog and the kids and things like that, and even maybe more so in Canada and probably Saskatchewan, our province, than other areas of the world. And that's
mhm.
what's given us a lot of problems here.
I mean, I should note at the start of this that I am going to be a huge hypocrite in what I have to say because I did just buy a single family home.
Yep.
However, I did join a co-op, and my front yard is now being used to communally grow vegetables that I'll share with other people. So, you know, a little bit less on the hypocrisy side. But we do have a density problem, especially in Regina. And I think that it's really terrible to the country at large. The issue that places that could otherwise become multifamily units are prevented from becoming multifamily units because the neighbors don't want multifamily units in their neighborhood. They think that it's a single family unit neighborhood.
Yep.
So places like the blank house, I forget what it's called, it had a heritage property designation, gave it some legal protections against any modifications, and an attempt to make a very nice building in a very good location home to more than one family got swatted down, not because the owner didn't want it, but because the neighbors thought that it would be inappropriate.
Yep. We might have an internet connection. If anybody else is seeing us having issues here, because I just got a notification that, and Bart's a little frozen on mine. I can hear you just fine, Bart, but you are frozen in a wonderful pose right now. Aaron put a hilarious comment in. Founding new towns has just become cool again. So I'm just wondering, is my experience playing a lot of Sim City since I was a kid a asset to this new world where we're founding new towns? Because I thought I was pretty good at Sim City as a kid. But you said how you're part of the problem. I agree. I'm in that same boat. I just bought a house that backed green space because I wanted that. And if all of a sudden the city came in and said, "Hey, we're going to build an apartment block behind you," I wouldn't be very happy about that either. Oh, did we lose you, Bart? Oh, looks like we lost Bart here and live stream in general. I'm going to reconnect it here. Bart, do we got you back here? Sorry, it looked like we lost Bart here for a second. We'll get him back here. I apologize for this here, but we should have him back fairly quick here. So we'll wait till Bart can reconnect, and we'll get him in on this in 1 second here. I'll just resend him the link in case he doesn't have it. Jordan, I like it. He took a photo or screenshot of Bart's nice frozen pose he had there. I'm sure, as Jordan knows, Bart, he's going to be able to have a lot of fun with him, bugging him about that. And we can maybe make that into a wallpaper in the future. That's something we could probably do. All right, we'll see if we can get Bart back in here. So yeah, the headline is quite misleading. 100%. It's obviously a very, we'll call it clickbaity title that, hey, it worked. It made me click on it. I thought it was an interesting article. And I got Bart hopefully signing in here pretty quick. So it was a good post. So I'll continue on this in terms of another thing that Bart and I had here in the notes is that NIMBYism in general, for those that know, NIMBYism is not in my backyard. And like I said, I'm part of this problem where I bought a house that backed green space, and I wouldn't be very happy if it no longer backed green space. So here's Bart's trying to reconnect. He sends me a message. But that's an issue that we have where single family neighborhoods, people bought into them and prefer them to continue to stay single family neighborhoods. And that doesn't allow for infill development. So that is another issue that can be a problem. I'm going to jump here while Bart's trying to reconnect. Hopefully he can get reconnected here fairly quickly. I've sent him the link, but the internet, when you need it to work, it doesn't work. We were talking for about a half an hour before we started the show and had no problems. But of course, as soon as we start it, that's when we get problems. Next topic I want to talk about, though, is a whole bunch of fun ones. And this is where we need Bart in. So hopefully we can get him back here right away. But that is government intervention. And so this is going to be a whole host of topics. And anybody who wants to chime in, go right ahead on this because this is going to be fun. First one, basically, this is going to be a section of what can or should the government do. That is what we're going to kind of frame this part of the topic. So if you guys have things that you think the government should do, let's chat about that. And the first one is foreign buyers tax. This is something that I think a lot of people have been talking about. We see it a lot in the news. It is something that there's a lot of people feel that this is a significant portion of the market and that people are, using Canada's real estate market as a place to stash money, to keep money and put it in there because it has been a stable investment. So the idea is if we had a tax to dissuade people from being able to do that, that would, I should admit Bart here. There we go. We should have Bart back. Let's see. But the idea is if we have a foreign buyers tax and we've got it in BC, we've got it in Ontario, and we also have it in Quebec, if I got that all right, where non-Canadian residents have additional taxes on top of them that makes it more cost prohibitive to purchase a home in Canada. We see Bart is in there. It says he is joining, so we should be back here right away. So foreign buyer tax. A lot of people say that this should be a national thing and maybe it should be higher. I think when you look at BC, Ontario, and Quebec, who all have this in, they're not seeing dramatic results because of a foreign buyer tax. They're not seeing where they've got a lot of people exiting the markets because they can't put their cash there. They're not seeing prices decline. And I think we're seeing that the foreign buyer, which is perceived to be a problem, is maybe not as significant of a portion of the market as some people have thought it might be. So I think this is something, it's going to be a fun topic to talk about here. So as soon as we can get Bart back on, we'll get him to give the counterpoint to this. But my thoughts are on it. Yes, I think that buying a house is important an opportunity for all Canadians to have access to. I don't know if I want to go as far as say if you're not a Canadian resident, you can't buy a house. And the reason being is maybe in the future, if I ever had enough money, I would love to buy a house in somewhere like Hawaii or Florida. And so why should I not be allowed to buy a house in Hawaii or Florida if I ever win the lottery, you know, do something like that? The same would apply for somebody maybe wanted to buy a vacation home on Vancouver Island, which is beautiful, or Whistler to ski, those types of places. So I'd be really curious how we could implement a foreign buyer tax while still not, or still allowing people to do things like that and buy vacation properties. So Bart says he thinks he's figured out one of the problems. Okay. And BH, I don't think it's I don't think it's good to limit ourselves by not letting people buy here. Kind of a trade-off because it lets foreign money come into our country. ET himself, non-resident, make it illegal. And that's where I struggle with it, is because what if somebody does want to buy a vacation property? They're not looking to buy it as an investment. They just want to be able to have a place in, Whistler, for example, to go skiing a couple of times a year. You think of Whistler as obviously very much an international destination for people, just like Aspen is in the States. So that is one where I think it's an idea that needs to be explored more. I'm just not sure if a blanket approach is the right approach. So we'll maybe circle back to that when Bart gets back here. The next one, speculation taxes. So this in some ways does already exist. ET himself says, no, they can rent or lease. And that's something that we could do. We could say, sorry, if you're not a resident, you can't buy a house. You can only rent or lease. So that is definitely a way that we can go about this. But yeah, so speculation tax. This one is one that the government has talked about doing. They have said they're going to, I think it was for 2022, that they wanted to have a speculation tax in place. And BH, what does he have here? Also, people are going to get around it by finding someone in Canada that you trust to buy a house. Yes, that was something that would probably happen as well. Kevin, here we go. Mortgage stress test seems to be the only tool in the government toolbox to try to control real estate, and it's clearly not effective. Yeah, I agree with you, Kevin, that it's there. Federally, it seems like that's the only option they either have or feel they have, and we're not seeing it have the significant impact that I think maybe people thought it would. So speculation tax, 200%. ET, so what would you put that on in terms of what is considered speculating on real estate? And does it get applied at the time of sale? Or is it something, this is Bart and I were talking about this, is it maybe a yearly thing? The longer you sit on the house, you get taxed every year versus at the point of sales. That's something we were talking about here. But speculation tax, there is in some ways already a speculation tax in Canada. And that is if you do not reside in the property, you buy it as an investment. When you go to sell it, you've got capital gains on that. So there is a tax in place, a speculation tax for somebody who wants to do that. And Bart needs help getting logged in. Give me the password. Need to try it from browser. Okay, let's see if we can get Bart in here. Give me 1 second here, guys. I don't even know if this is set up as. Copy invitation. There. We should have Bart in here for 1 second. Hopefully we got this sorted out. Thank you, Sojourner, very much for that. I appreciate the donation. Aaron, free market approach. Let prices skyrocket and we can spread out to settle new lands. Otherwise, we'll always enjoy having a big empty country. Yes, that is one approach. We can definitely just let things spread out. Again, maybe my SimCity experience as a kid will count for something and we can start building some new towns. And ET, yeah, capital gains when they sell at 50%. So that already exists. 50% of a capital gains is taxable on that year's income. So you do, if you sell a property and you make $100,000 on that, $50,000 of that goes towards your income for that year. Tax support for first-time homebuyers would help, and forbidding more than 5% over asking price would help those first-time buyers. So that's an interesting concept here. The idea of limiting prices. That the question I become with that is, are we no longer in a free market? If we are going to say you can only spend so much over asking, are we regulating what a seller has to put as a selling price? Or are we saying, okay, you're only allowed to accept a certain purchase price? So that's an interesting concept. Sojourner, I can't see any of the comments. Are you reading the comments? Yes, I'm reading them in the comment section here below the video. If it's on a desktop, it's usually on the side there, Sojourner. And I'm not sure where it is on mobile, actually. Let's see if we got Bart back here. Admit. Try to get Bart in here. Of course, yes, as Sojourner said, technology never works when you need it to. And it looks like we're getting him back in here. So, Jesus, yeah, I'd like to... oh, Jordan needed to refresh it to see him on mobile. I'd like a kind of a further explanation for tax support for first-time homebuyers. I have a thing I'm going to talk about a little bit later that I think you guys would find really interesting for what was done here in Saskatchewan for first-time homebuyers. We had it available for 1 year, and I think it's an interesting program. So I'm going to get into that in just a second here. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about that right now because it was next on my list. And so what we had here in Saskatchewan for first-time homebuyers, we have a program in the province. If you get your degree or a trade, any sort of post-secondary education that is completed here in Saskatchewan, and if you stay here for, it is 7 years, you get a tax break from the provincial government. So in the case of a 4-year degree, you get a, I've tried to free Bart from the waiting room here. We're going to see if he's in. I put him as admit, but he still didn't work for him. So where's the button to donate to Bart to get better internet? We're going to have to, yeah, get Bart some better internet here. We'll see if we can get him back in here. But I'm just going to try, I'm going to message Bart here and just see what's going on, if he's got an internet connection problem here. So going back to the Saskatchewan, it's called grad retention. So if you get a 4-year degree in the province, you get a $20,000 income tax break. And the way that works is you have over 10 years, you will have to not pay $20,000 of provincial income tax. That actually used to be a program where if you could actually get it as a cash credit back, but they changed that. So if you have a huge income tax bill your first year and you use all 20 grand, it's gone. But or if it takes 10 years to use it up, you do get that income tax break. What they did here was they modified that program a little bit. And again, so 1 year it was available. And what you could do is you could take up to 50% of that tax break as a grant towards a down payment. And if a couple was doing that, they could each take 50%. So here in Saskatchewan, if you had a couple with each had a degree, they'd each have $40,000 in graduate retention. Then they would be able to take that $20,000 of that, and they would be able to use it to a down payment. Here, $20,000 is a huge, huge help for a down payment, seeing as the average house price is around $300,000. So 5%, you need about $15,000. So that $20,000 would get you a down payment right away. And the big advantage to that was if you stayed in the house and you didn't sell it for at least 3 years, then you got to essentially keep it as a grant. If you sold the house before the 3 years was up, then you had to pay that back. Okay, so I've been doing active Zoom meetings for last month and had this first time I've ever run into login problems. This is clear an issue with Matt's internet connection. Thanks, Bart, blaming me. I still think it's him. I'm going to try admitting Bart one more time here, but maybe we need to start a GoFundMe campaign to get Bart better internet. Maybe that's what we need to do. I'm going to try messaging him again here. I will send him another link. We will try it once more. See if we can get Bart in. But yeah, maybe we need to start the GoFundMe campaign and donate to pay Bart's internet bill here. Just saying, it was working perfectly fine before and last night when I was doing test runs on this with a friend of mine. So I'm thinking it's Bart's problem still. But yes, the grad retention program was, I thought, an excellent use of taxpayer dollars and government incentives. BH, good night, everyone. It's late on the East Coast. Yes, I know these live streams are tough to do in a time for everybody, but thanks very much, BH, for checking in. So I thought that grad retention program was very, very helpful for first-time homebuyers. I thought it was an excellent program, and I would like to see some variation of that. And I'm not sure how you would implement it. So if anybody has good ideas how you could implement this grad retention type program nationally to help out first-time homebuyers, I'd be really interested to hear about that. If anyone wants to troubleshoot and can't log in from my laptop, Wi-Fi, desktop, hardware, phone, just give me connecting messages, unknown error. Not to tell Bart to maybe like restart it. I'll tell him that. I'll message him on his phone, see if that works. So, Brendan here. I'm back since a month ago's live broadcast. Still no first house in Calgary, and it's still very competitive. Bart says he did restart all his machines. Yeah, Calgary real estate market, for a market that had been quiet for 5, 6, 7 years, is actually quite a bit more competitive than it has been for a while. Kevin, yeah, the first time home buyer incentive program works well in Saskatchewan. So the first time home buyer incentive program is, oh, let's see. Bart sent me a message. What is he getting? He is, oh, now it says I got to let him in again. Oh, hold up. We might have Bart back here. I'm trying to admit him once again. This is time number 5 to admit him. Yeah, the first time homebuyer incentive program. So we'll quickly chat about that, and I'll let Bart know I've admitted him. We'll see if that gets him back in here or not. Maybe Zoom is the problem. Maybe we're gonna have to try a new platform to get him in. I thought this was gonna be perfect. But first time homebuyer incentive program, for those that don't know, hey, maybe we're getting Bart back here. Hey Bart, can you hear me? Can't see you yet, but I can hear you. I think, nope, can't hear you yet. First time homebuyer incentive program is where the federal government will, on a resale house, they will grant you 5% in addition to your down payment. Now, you have to qualify entirely on your own. You cannot use this program to qualify. Whereas the Saskatchewan one, this would actually help you qualify. Then they will take, in exchange, they will take a 5% equity stake in your house. The same thing applies for new construction. It's a 10% stake they will take in your house for a 10% additional down payment. Bart, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Bart. We can't see you yet, but we finally have audio back on. So, hey, the GoFundMe campaign worked. We're paying your internet bill next month. Jordan's response, I like it. Probably the people that are gardening in your yard are stealing your Wi-Fi. Did you check that too? Oh, might have lost Bart again. Bart, we got no mic if you can hear us. I'll go back to the comments here. So in Montreal, there only seems to be welcome taxes for families, and so there are some pretty high taxes. Oh, Bart, heard you for a glorious moment, and then it disconnected. Let's see if Bart comes back here. Black Bart is just a black screen so far. Yeah, I know Montreal has some additional taxes when buying that can definitely make it more difficult to buy a house. Varlen Allen, I hope I pronounced that right. How will the new laws affect us? I'm a first-time home buyer, so I'll let you kind of extend on that. Are you talking the stress test, Varlen? So let me know in the comments below if that's what you're referring to, and I will get back to you on that. Brennan, I think it's literally supply and demand. A lot of Canadian savings went up during COVID, either going into stocks or going into houses. A lot of people upgrading in Calgary. Yes, Brennan, you are 100% right on supply and demand being an issue. And we did see that. And I'm just going to talk from my own experience. I saw a number of buyers that were able to put away more money because they weren't going out and spending money. They weren't going out, they weren't traveling, anything like that. So these buyers had larger down payments than they probably would have. That's a big one. And yes, people did make money on stock markets for sure. Some meme stocks, Jordan. I know you made some money on some meme stocks. I think he actually used it for his down payment. Varlin, mortgage laws.
Don't forget all the great cryptos out there.
Yes, there we got Bart back. I hope everybody else can hear Bart. I can hear Bart. Can't see Bart yet, but we can hear him.
All right. Cool. We will take what we can get.
Okay, we'll circle back to some topics. I'll answer Varlin's question real quick here. Mortgage laws. So the stress test, yes, that is going to affect buyers. I think it's going to be a very, very small amount because it only reduces your buying power by about 5.5%. And a person that is trying to buy a house, that little bit of wiggle room is that if you're that close to not qualifying, that's actually going to make it pretty hard. Banks are going to be double, triple, quadruple checking everything if you are running that tight to the red line on that. But it is going to reduce your buying power by about 5.5%, Varlin. So you may, if you're thinking about buying very quickly, you may have the ability to get grandfathered in. And I'm going to let Kevin jump in. Kevin's a mortgage broker on that in terms of buyers may be grandfathered if they had pre-approvals done prior to this announcement. So I'll let that. But Bart, you still got us here?
I still got you.
Fantastic. Okay, I want to circle back to a couple of things here that we had. So foreign buyers tax. What's your thoughts on having a foreign buyers tax?
I think the issue probably isn't foreign buyers necessarily. I think the issue is, as people see it, whether it's actually an issue or not, I don't know enough. But the issue isn't foreign buyers, it's foreign speculators, it's foreign investors, yada, yada, yada. Somebody who wants to come and purchase a home in Canada, come live in it, exist in it, just because they're from away, doesn't mean that that's necessarily worse for us overall. Now, does that lead to some problems? Yes, some other places have higher wages, have more incentive structures, have so many other things that might make for an unfair playing field when it comes to purchasing, but it's not like we have a completely fair playing field within Canada either. So I mean, if you are going to put in a foreign buyers tax, then you have that big macro level policy problem of now we're in conflict with country A because we're saying that their citizens can't buy land, and then country A wants to retaliate by doing something completely unrelated, and the cascading issue continues.
Yeah, that was something I was talking about in terms of, if you want to buy a vacation property, all of a sudden you can't do that. And, then, yeah, I think you do create some issues in terms of, or not domestic, international relations wise, telling people they're no longer welcome to buy houses. So yeah, that's an interesting point. I never really thought about that. Varlin Allen. I put an offer in a place in Newfoundland, Corner Brook, Newfoundland, $229. You know
God's
that area,
country.
don't you? Yeah, you do. And you're pre-approved for double, so it's not going to affect you. Yes, if you're well under the limits, these rules are not going to affect you at all. And Kevin had, as far as we've been told, live mortgage applications sent on or after June 1st must qualify under the new rate. So basically, unless the deal's in process, Kevin, the way I'm understanding that, any new deals will have to qualify under the new rules. Bart, yeah, Corner Brook. Tell us about Corner Brook real quick, because it seems like you know that.
No, I don't know Newfoundland as well as I should, but anywhere on the rock, beautiful. I went to law school in Nova Scotia. I've had friends from Newfoundland. We're still on Facebook, and every once in a while I'll get jealous as they put a photo up for just how beautiful it is out there. And friendliest folk in the world. I don't think I've ever met somebody from Newfoundland I haven't immediately just wanted to spend the rest of my week with.
Yep, I would agree with you. Yeah, anybody from Newfoundland, we're going to be best friends. I have had never any issues getting along with anybody from anywhere in the Maritimes, but Newfoundland especially. So
Newfoundland is not a maritime province, Matt.
Does that Newfoundland not count as a maritime province? Did I miss something?
No.
Oh,
there are 7 people in the world that'll say that to you, and it's just one of my fun weird facts. But it's not a maritime province. It's something else entirely.
Okay, well, I just learned something because I always lumped in Newfoundland into the Maritimes, and I'm sorry if I have offended a bunch of Newfies and Maritimers at the same time. Um, yes, Varlin Allen, and it's very affordable by comparison. He's up in Labrador, but originally from Ontario. So yeah, the prices in Newfoundland are going to be a whole lot better than they are in Ontario.
Which tells you that it's not a land problem. Well, Labrador has a lot of land, but Newfoundland doesn't have a ton of land.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So the next one here, speculation tax. You and I were chatting about that one. Speculation taxes, and should this be something the government should be doing? They're talking 2022, I believe it was, that they wanted to bring in a speculation tax.
I mean, this makes for terrible radio because at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Government taking big sword against small problem, big sword having unintended consequences. A speculation tax, I think that you might be able to target it. I think that you're going to want to run into something along the lines of combining the already existing capital gains tax, which I heard you talk about, with some kind of empty room, empty house tax. And if you're going to call it a speculation tax, maybe the issue isn't, Joe Blow has his home and then one place that he thinks is going to go up 20K in 6 months, but it's the person who's got like, oh yeah, I own 6 or 7 condos, 2 family homes, and yada yada, and none of them are full because I don't want to be a landlord. They keep going up in value, so I keep taking loans out against them. So maybe the speculation tax is less about, you've got one empty house, and it's more about the more places you own that aren't being actively used for housing, and taking that away from the market, the more you have to pay for the negative externalities that comes with.
Yeah, I think that could be a really interesting topic or something to explore more. The speculation tax the government has proposed is a 1% value tax. Now, my thoughts are on it: if you have a $500,000 house and you have the capital to leave that $500,000 house vacant, a $5,000 yearly tax probably means nothing to you. That's just cost of doing business, especially if you're saying it's going to appreciate 10 or 15% a year. So this to me seems very much of a government that is playing lip service to a problem. They want to be able to announce that we have done something without actually doing anything.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind on that is taxes do serve as a disincentivization, and yes, but they're also revenue generation.
Yep.
And so it may be that the bean folk are like, okay, this no way to really solve this problem, but if we can start scraping, an extra X amount of tax revenue a year, we can put it towards this other alleviation problem.
Well, they definitely figured that out with CMHC in 2015. So for those that don't know, this is something that's a big bone of contention for me. When you are a high ratio buyer, so that is anybody with less than 20% down, you have to have mortgage default insurance. Most people call that CMHC fees. There's 3 providers of mortgage default insurance in Canada. CMHC was the largest. They are no longer the largest. Then there was Canada Guarantee, which is a private company, and there was Genworth Financial, which has been rebranded to Sagen as of last year. Those are 2 private competitors to CMHC. But what the point of this is CMHC would have insurance if somebody defaulted on their mortgage. CMHC or those other 2 private lenders would pay out the insurance policy based on the losses that the lender, the bank, incurred. So you as the homeowner bought the insurance, but it was actually to protect your lender. Now, CMHC was founded in 1846. Their mandate is to assist Canadians in homeownership. That's their mandate. If you check on their website, it might have that wording wrong, but that's basically what it is. They had, in 2015, they've raised CMHC fees to what they are currently today, and their reasoning behind it was that they needed to have more cash in the bank because if there was an issue with mortgage defaults, they wouldn't have the money to cover those defaults. 6 months, almost to the day, CMHC announces they have a $2.5 billion dividend to be paid to the Government of Canada's General Revenue Fund. Since 1946, CMHC has never dividended the Government of Canada a single penny. And then in 2015, the government figured out CMHC has a lot of money, and they have stripped out. And if you go through and read their press releases, it's probably about 25 to 30 billion dollars has been stripped out of CMHC. So first-time home buyers have been paying taxes in this country basically since 2015 directly to the Government of Canada's General Revenue Fund. So they're going and punishing essentially, the most vulnerable buyers, those that have the toughest time getting in the market. They're punishing them to the tune of billions of dollars to buy a house in Canada. And that thing drives me insane. I'll read the comments here, Bart, and you can kind of jump in on that.
That's the kind of thing that I don't know nearly enough to talk about with any kind of expertise. Just like I wouldn't expect Matt to talk too much about, the Attorney General's Office of the Law Society. I would listen to him on that, particularly as it comes to government trying to find new ways to generate revenue without increasing taxes and trying to make it look like they just found the money.
Yep. Yeah, this was one. I understood if they needed to raise fees because they were in a cash vulnerable position, and if there was a wave of defaults, they weren't going to be able to afford it. Fine, I buy that argument. But all of a sudden, if you have literally billions of dollars to just give the government of Canada, essentially what CMHC has now become is not an insurance policy, but is a revenue generation tool for the government of Canada. And I just think that's outrageous personally, that's what they have turned CMHC into. And my bigger concern becomes then is that what happens if all of a sudden CMHC does get themselves in trouble and they do need that cash that they don't have? Does the government of Canada now have to bail out CMHC, which Barlin says we need to stop spending money on, or start spending money on innovation entrepreneurs rather than bailing people out? So does CMHC also have to get a bailout? And, or does this now, it create a situation where you have banks, lenders that aren't confident that these insurance policies will be paid out and start restricting lending practices? So these are, kind of two issues that really worry me on this subject. So I didn't even put this in the show notes, and now you got me all worked up. So now we're gonna have some fun with that. So here's what
I do want to give a shout out to Sojourner for also saying that Newfoundland is in a maritime province. Nobody else has ever said that with me before, so thank you very much.
I'll jump in there as well. So where do you see taxes? And this, he meant to say stress test in 5 years. Do you think the stress test rate could become a reality? It is. The stress test has been around, for those that don't know, since.
I think what they're saying is not, is the stress test a reality? I think what they're saying is, are the stress test interest rates going to become a reality?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I misread that there. Well, the last time we saw a 5.5% interest rate, and I'll let Kevin jump in on this as well, I believe was like 2008, early 2000s. If you look at the history of interest rates, they typically drop quite quickly. They do not come back very quickly. So in 5 years, do you think that the stress test qualification rate will be what you're paying? I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd be a lot wealthier. I think that would be a stretch to say we're going to see people actually paying 5.5% interest rates. So, but I'll let Kevin jump in on that as well. Bart, what do you think? 5.5% interest rates?
If we hit 5.5% interest rates, everyone who bought their houses before the updated stress test would probably be in a lot worse position than the people who are buying after anyway. I don't see, if we end up at 5.5% interest rates, it is going to be a more significant problem than can be dealt with at this point. But same idea with the crystal ball. Black swan events like 2008, like 2020 are going to have more of an effect in 5 years than I can even speculate on. Black swan event being some weird thing that came and nobody really expected.
I think one thing too, I've seen a lot of people commenting, well, we need to raise interest rates to slow down the housing market. I think that's maybe a little bit simplistic, because if the Bank of Canada starts raising interest rates, that also means the Government of Canada's debt becomes more expensive. They are keeping interest rates low with the sole intent of inflating away their debt problems. So the Government of Canada also doesn't want to see interest rates that high because it makes their life a lot more difficult. So one of the reasons I think you're not seeing interest rates or won't see them go up to astronomical levels compared to what they are today is the Government of Canada can't afford it. Simple as that. Bart, I'll let you jump on that and I'll read some comments here.
Uh, yeah, like we said, the complexities around the like national lending interest rate are way too big to have any really useful speculation on. The only thing that I think is particularly good to note is raising it to slow down the housing market feels like it might be trying to put the cart before the horse. Um, we don't need to slow down the housing market. We need to ensure that there's enough houses that people can live in, and that slowing the housing market down so fewer people want to buy houses because it's too expensive doesn't actually fix the problem. It just makes it feel like there's not a problem.
Yeah, you know what? You're jumping into the exact next topic I want to talk about. I'll read through the comments real quick. So Kevin Carson, 5% mortgages. Those we haven't seen those in 10 years. And then like Kevin's comment, if the rates go up to 6%, there will be blood in the streets.
I think you
Yes.
missed one of Kevin's comments, actually.
Yeah, well, I skipped over that on purpose that Bart nailed it. I mean, we can't give you too much credit. People are going to want you back more often. If you want Bart to come back for a future episode of this, let me know. And I think we can arrange to have Bart to come back for a future time. Another one, Brendan put here, a lot of people lose their homes or have to take an Uber driver, night job, especially those that get into bidding wars right now. Yeah, that's a good thing. And everybody talks, but we need to slow down the real estate market. The government of Canada doesn't want to do that as because the people that buy houses are also the same people that typically vote in large numbers. And that's a voter base the government does not want to upset. So that is an area that we have to, a lot of people say we need to do this, but you have to remember too, a government is trying to get reelected and homeowners statistically vote in very large numbers.
Now, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of Canadians being far too leveraged to maintain their debt, I feel like I've been reading that for so long. I feel like the Macleans I was reading when I was in high school, for Christ's sake.
It
Yeah.
seems like, yep.
And I mean, maybe that means we're dealing with it well because the balloon never pops, or maybe it means that we're dealing with it poorly because the balloon never deflates.
We just keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, exactly. So global warming hits and we get flooded out, and that way nobody has to worry about all their debts because we're bartering with can openers.
Hey, Saskatchewan will look fantastic then. Would that mean we got beachfront property? Would that be what it be? ET, those are some huge thumbs up. Bart, I think you've got a new friend in the comments. ET's going to want you back for sure. Many countries do not allow foreign buyers to buy property. This is something that I think maybe in a future one we should look into in terms of what countries bar non-residents from buying property. So that would be interesting. If anybody knows it offhand, throw in the comments, but I'd be curious to know. But yeah, let's get into improving supply, encouraging development. We've seen now for a long time two things I think that play into the market is immigration combined with household formation has far outpaced new construction rates. I read an article, and I might have my numbers a little bit wrong here. This was tracking Toronto and Vancouver, so your two biggest markets in Canada. It was housing starts versus new jobs created. And of course, not everybody with a job is going to buy a house, but people that have jobs, or you need a job to buy a house. So those are going to be important things to look at. From 2000 to 2020 was where the stats came from, but for the first 10 years of that 20-year cycle, those cities averaged about 50,000 construction starts. In the same time frame, they averaged per year, they averaged 75,000 new jobs. Then you take from 2010 to 2020, those numbers jumped. The new construction starts stayed at 50,000, and the jobs numbers jumped to like 120,000 new jobs created every year in those same years. So you can see what kind of a problem is being created there with those types of imbalances.
Yeah, and it's such a difficult problem because when we talk about new home starts, I mean, this is again my arrogance coming through. I took an economics of cities classes many years ago, and so I'm from Regina. I live in Regina. I used to go to the University of Regina. I lived on the opposite side of town, and to this day, I am infuriated about pretty much everything about Regina as far as city design, city construction goes, and that goes back to the founding where,
You mean the train
you know,
across the freeway was a bad idea? For
that,
those,
you know,
for
that is
those
not
that,
even in the top 10 things that I hate about this city.
for those that don't know, Regina has a giant freeway that runs around the whole city, and in the north end of town, there is a railroad track that runs right through the freeway. And I swear, at every time at 5 o'clock, a train goes through there and blocks up traffic. When I book showings in the north end, because my office in the east side, I live in the east side. If I have to show a house around 5 o'clock, I book an extra 15 minutes of my travel time just to make it on time for those showings.
Mm-hmm. But so yeah, in Regina, it started with shitty swampland bad swampland that nobody wanted, that a guy named Dudney owned. He also knew a guy in government, and the guy in government shockingly said that the capital should be on this terrible swampland for this new province. That might actually be fake. I think it's true. Everything I've looked at says it's true, but if somebody wants to correct me, that's fine. But you know, when you have terrible swampland and you build, you know, the universities in the southeast not near anything. And so all of that's a long way to say new builds have a problem where individuals want to live in single family units and have yards. But collectively, what we really need is people living in like density around, you know, created neighborhoods. Like the University of Regina should be downtown,
Yep.
and there should have been a creation of a hub there.
Yep.
But instead, it's in the middle of nowhere, and we have a commuter campus. And we can't just control what gets built where from a central hub, because that doesn't work.
Yep.
Either. But this, yeah.
Aaron makes a hilarious point. He says, "You guys are both in Regina. Shouldn't you get together so Wi-Fi isn't a problem?" Yes, we should, but we still have COVID restrictions that will not allow Bart to come over or me to go to Bart's house. But in the future, yes, I think we will do one of these sitting here around the chair type of thing, and we will not have Wi-Fi connection issues. Or this was Bart's grand plan to get his internet paid for in the GoFundMe campaign that we have to start. Maybe Bart created COVID to have the stay-at-home orders because he knew we were going to do a live stream a year and a half later, and that was how we were going to get his internet paid for. That, Bart, you're smarter than I thought.
It's all the web, baby. It's all the web. But yeah. So at the end of the day, we want to fix the housing problem. We need people to want to buy efficient places to live, or we need to build places that people want to live.
Taylor Weisgerber, dang Bart, what have you done? One thing I was going to bring up here in terms of improving supply. This was a program, again, available in Regina a few years ago, and it's long since died, where if you wanted to build a regulation suite, so regulation in the definition here in our city, for all intents and purposes, is two entirely independent units. So if people want to build a basement suite, you could take off the main floor and that basement suite would run entirely independent. So it's got its own utilities, it's got its own fire barrier, own entrance, it's got its own kitchen, laundry, everything. If you wanted to do that, if you want to retrofit your basement to build a regulation basement suite, the city of Regina had grants for like $30,000 or $40,000. They would grant you as long as you hit that criteria of a regulation suite. At the time, we had a real rental crisis in the city. Again, I thought that was a phenomenal use of tax dollars to create rental suites. And you also had rent caps on that. I think it was like at the time about $600 a month, which again for here is very good for a two-bedroom basement suite type of thing. And then I think it had to be like that for like 5 years, and then you could start raising rates, or there was some restrictions. I thought it was fantastic. Again, this lasted for a few years and disappeared, but I do know a few people that did build basement suites with it, and they're super happy that they still have them.
Varlin, property moving to the blockchain is a terrible idea. You wouldn't need real estate lawyers anymore.
I mean to look at houses with proper suites so I can rent it out. Brennan, yes. Kevin, I'll let you jump in on this as well. And Bart, we've got actually just recently noticed from the Saskatchewan Real Estate Association that unless a suite is a proper, fully compliant regulation suite, we are to only call regulation suites, and everything else should be termed what it is. It's an illegal suite. It does not meet code. It does not meet safety standards. I mean, We see people getting creative with calling it a mother-in-law suite or not quite regulation, yada yada, whatever language you want. But that would be something where if you're a buyer and you get a regulation suite, one, you're protected legally, I would assume for the most part, but also, and Kevin can jump in on this, you can use that rental income as part of your qualification. They will count that. So I think that is a huge asset for first time home buyers if you can get into a house with a regulation suite to help you make the payments.
And I mean, at the end of the day, it's better to have two people living in a place than one, better to have four than two kind of thing. And some people don't want to buy a house. Some people just want to rent. And that kind of basement suite function works really well for them. I mean, do I want people to have to pay $600 a month rent when the mortgage on the house is $1,000, and now this person in the basement is kind of stuck and can't save up for their own down payment? Obviously not, but that's not what every renter is. So these basement suites make for a more efficient use of space and provide more opportunities, and can even provide downward pressure for the rental market.
So, a couple of comments. It seems here you are a very creative dungeon master. That does not surprise me. Dungeon.
Everyone
D&D,
come watch.
yeah.
Everyone come watch Dungeon Crawl, a play put on by the Regina Little Theater on Friday and Saturday. But yes, I met Joran running D&D games for him back in the day. With him, I guess. There was other people involved too.
This one was a question from the comments that we're going to get to here, but let's get to it right now. What should a client expect from a real estate lawyer? What makes a good real estate lawyer? I feel my lawyer has been AWOL during the home buying process. So we'll jump here to that question real quickly.
Okay. So this is a very difficult question to answer. So I'm going to talk not about my process, not about anyone I know's process, but about some kind of generalities. Nothing I say should be taken to mean that whoever you're using for your lawyer, be you Brina, be you anyone else, is doing the wrong thing. They're just doing a different thing. But at the end of the day, a perfect real estate lawyer is somebody you barely have to talk to, and you get your house when you're supposed to get your house, and it causes zero stress for you. A good real estate lawyer is somebody who can work with you if things come up that are a little out of the ordinary. So if you have part of your mortgage being paid by a third party, or your real estate agent made your possession date on a holiday, or
Guilty.
something else something else kind of weird has happened. So you want a real estate lawyer who's engaged in that process. But a disconnected real estate lawyer isn't necessarily a bad thing. When I do real estate deals, I charge more than other lawyers in the city. I charge the tariff rate.
You've got a client, by the way. Barlin wants you to be his lawyer.
I am not allowed to advertise myself like this, but Barlin,
I believe you only have a license for Saskatchewan. Is that correct? Or
I only have a license for Saskatchewan, but we are allowed to practice in other provinces for less than, I think, 30 days, depending on the province.
Okay.
Unless Barlin is in Montreal, because there's a civil code there that I don't understand.
Okay.
But yeah, so a disconnected real estate lawyer might mean that you are getting cheaper service, because some firms have a real estate practice that is kind of volume based. They get as many real estate deals as they can. They can charge less per deal, but they have their assistants doing a lot of the work.
Yep.
And so you don't talk to your lawyer that much, because your lawyer, if your lawyer doesn't have to talk to you, then your lawyer is off earning money doing something else, and you end up paying less. But with all that being said, if it is your first time buying a home and you are nervous or worried, or you want kind of something that you're not going to have, that you're going to have something with a little more back and forth, ask questions when you're kind of looking to hire a lawyer. If a lawyer says, I'm only going to charge you X, ask, okay, that's great. Am I going to meet with you or an assistant when it comes to signing documents? Is somebody going to be able to explain the process to/with me? And find that out. I mean, I meet with all my real estate clients to get the documents signed personally, um, but I end up charging a little bit more. So a good real estate lawyer is one that makes you feel comfortable and charges you an amount that you are happy to pay at the end of the day.
I think the biggest thing is you want to know that lawyer's in your corner and
Yep.
is looking out for you, and that they have good Wi-Fi. Sounds like that's important. I also like you said how that you're gonna catch on mistakes in terms of making sure possessions are not on a stat holiday. Guilty of that. I've done that once or twice. Guys, this is something that I have done a few times where you write a deal 2 or 3 months away from possession and you don't know when the stat holiday is. I've done that before. And actually, again, for those that may not know, I don't think anybody would know, I helped Bart buy his house and I wrote the possession day wrong in my calendar. And so he messaged me. It was a 30th. He messaged me and he said, "Where are you?" And as soon as I heard the message, I went, crap, because I had it on the 31st in my calendar. So I screwed up on Bart's possession day.
Yeah. And Varlin, the problem is there's no prescriptive idea about what your relationship with your lawyer is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a relationship that doesn't bring you extra stress. It's supposed to be a relationship that helps alleviate stress. Some people need that to be more back and forth. Some people want it to be less expensive. If you are not comfortable with the lawyer you have and they're not getting back to you in the time that you want, you're allowed to look around for somebody else. There's as many different ways to practice real estate law and any other kind of law as there are lawyers.
So what I'm going to do here, because we have been running for over an hour, I want to jump to it.
I'm going to say one more thing just because
Yep.
Taylor reminded me. Another part of the problem is sometimes you pay X dollars and nothing goes wrong. The lawyer, that's great. Nothing went wrong. I charged for 3 hours and it took an hour and a half. The next person, everything goes wrong. I charged for 3 hours, but it took 6.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time when you're paying your lawyer, it's not always about especially on real estate where I'm not charging my hourly rate. I'm giving you a fee based on the purchase price. Sometimes it's just, everything went great, cool, but it was an investment that you made, call it insurance, that if nothing went wrong, you might overpay a little bit, but if something goes wrong, you'll underpay, and you don't know what's going to happen until after it's already done.
Okay. Thank you, Bart. And I hope, Bart, I hope they got that question answer for Brina there. And if we didn't, please throw in the chat. We did not fully answer that question for you. We're going to jump on to this one, a series of topics here in improving real estate. And I think this is going to be the best me versus Bart section of this video where we're going to have some fun. So, couple of topics we're going to jump in and I'll list them off so you guys know what's coming up, and feel free to jump in as well as to give us additional topics or things you want us to kind of hit on. But I want to talk about blind bidding, talking about whether sale prices should be public knowledge, improvements in transparency in real estate, regulation, and tougher standards. I think that's kind of the 5 categories I got here. We talked about blind bidding in my last live stream. And here will be my take on blind bidding. First off, a purchase is a transaction between 2 private individuals. And how much of that should be public knowledge when it is 2 private individuals? On the flip side, I also understand that this is the biggest transaction pretty much everybody in their life will make. So you want to have as much information as possible. And I, as an agent, want to get you as much information as I possibly can. The term blind bidding, I think, gets thrown around a little bit too much. And I think the solution to blind bidding is sometimes too simple. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of scenarios. A house goes up for sale and they say, we are going to look at offers It goes up for sale on Friday, and we're going to look at offers on Monday. And everybody on Monday submits their offer. Is that a bidding war? Then the next one is, the next scenario, offer comes in, somebody, the listing agent, actually, I'll walk you through a real scenario that I know happened. 30 offers came in on a property. The agent phoned every single one of those agents. Hey, you're one of 30. Would you like to resubmit an offer? About 25 came back. Phoned all 25. You're one of 25. Would you like to resubmit an offer? And this process went on for 5 or 6 rounds. Is that a bidding war? So I think the idea, people think of, well, if there's a bunch of multiple offers, it's automatically a bidding war. Multiple offers just means they got multiple offers on the property. I would put the second scenario as a true bidding war, but blind bidding. So people think we should just know what sale prices are or what the offer prices are. And my thought process is that is a very simplistic way to look at it, because as a seller, a purchase price is only one part of the equation. Possession day is going to be an important part of the equation. Inclusions are going to be an important part of the equation. I have lost offers because the seller knew one of the buyers and said, this is who I want to sell my house to. Or I have more confidence that these buyers, because they have a larger down payment, are going to be able to close this deal. Or these buyers are buying cash because they have the financial resources, or at least they say they do. So I'm going to take the cash offer, even though it's lower than the one with the financing condition. So my question becomes is, are we just going to reveal prices? Or are we going to reveal every single aspect of the offer? And is that better for the consumer? Because then does a person go, holy crap, they offered $350,000 for a house. I'm going to offer $355,000. And the next guy says, well, I'll offer $356,000. And does it turn into an auction and end up worse? So I'm going to read through the comments. And Bart, I want to hear your take on blind bidding.
Sure. Blind bidding is a disaster for real estate markets. Not knowing what other people are bidding encourages a lack of information, which can drive a irrational decision making. We can talk about, oh, inclusions are important and oh, possession date is important, but I'd be willing to bet that in 85% of real estate transactions, price carries the day. Now, you know, if I say 255 and I want the dryer, and you say no, okay, fine, then give me 260. Is that price or is that inclusions? I think that could go either way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, an auction is just a way to make sure that there is as little dead weight loss for a system as possible. Like I was talking about before, on an individual basis, yes, the price that is paid for a house is what that house is worth. But when you take all that micro and put it on the macro, if we consistently have houses selling above what they would sell for if everyone had perfect information, we are creating a dead weight loss. And that surplus value is, if I remember my graphs correctly, going to the sellers, i.e. people who had the fortune, luck, forethought, business acumen, whatever that word you want to use is, to pre-purchase this land for value. So on a larger scale, as you know, getting rid of blind bidding isn't saying you have to take the highest cash offer, but what it is doing is saying you're not able to take advantage of the fact that some people don't really understand the market and are going to put in bids that are clearly over value. Not for them, because value is what you're willing to pay and what you're willing to accept, but on a market scale.
So I'm going to go through a couple of the comments, but I'm going to throw this in here. So are we just going to, or should we just reveal pricing? Like in terms of the top offer is $355,000, or are we going to say the top offer is $355,000? These are their conditions. This is their possession day. This is their inclusions. Are we going to reveal all of that information to all parties? And I'm going to read through the comments here and I'll come back to this. Okay.
Absolutely. Land is a public good. There's only so much land. Just because you own the house doesn't mean you own the land. You can still be expropriated at any given moment. I don't remember if that's the American or the Canadian term. Why not have that information out there? I mean, is it weird that my neighbor would have been able to see that I moved in on December 31st, and I kept a deep freeze? Maybe, I guess, but at the end of the day, it still is going to create more efficiencies, because then instead of wasting my time on a house where I might see, okay, cool, I'm interested in this house, let's take a look. If I can see, oh, their move-in date is sooner than I'm able to move in, their bid is higher than I can, and I can't afford a new fridge, and if they're not keeping the fridge as an inclusion, I just can't compete with that. So why would I? It saves me from wasting my time, which I can better spend either being productive or finding a place that is in my price range, in my date range, in my inclusion range.
So are real estate transactions no longer private deals then? If anybody can look
Uh,
up the information.
it's still a private deal. I mean, you can look up the information about all kinds of deals.
Yep.
If you what and I mean, I can log into ISC as a private citizen and get a pretty good idea of what was paid for
So
a
for those that
place.
don't know, ISC
Oh, sorry.
is our land titles registry here in Saskatchewan. And yes, anybody who's willing to pay the $10 fee can pull land title information on any property. You can know exactly what their mortgage amount was. I believe you can also pull their mortgage rate, what they actually got. You can see who the purchaser is. You can see what their starting mortgage amount was. You can see any loans that they have against the house, liens, anything. That is all public information here in Saskatchewan. I do believe every province has some variation of that. I'm not sure exactly what is available publicly, but I know there is a database where you can pull a lot of that information. So there's that. Now I want to quickly jump in a couple of comments here because I think there's some interesting ones. So the second scenario, the two I brought out, should not be allowed. People saying it should be illegal. Now, is that not essentially that second scenario I described in auction?
Eh, dear,
I might be stretching it there.
The key difference is it's not, oh yeah, there's 29 other bids. Here's what the one that they're thinking about is, can you beat it? It's, oh, there's 29 other bids.
Yep.
Your lizard brain probably doesn't want to lose. Think about all the sunk cost you've thrown into this.
Yep. And so that is one. I missed the comment who had it. Sorry, but Varlin, blind bidding promotes emotional decision making. I would counter that as buying houses in general is emotional. And this will just talk with my experience as an agent that the vast majority of deals I have done, the buyers have made the decision whether they're going to buy the house in the first 10 to 15 steps when they walk in the house. And then they're emotionally attached to it. And I can pretty much read most buyers, and I know when they're getting the feel, I guess I'll call it, of this is the right house for me. So I've become kind of used to reading people's body language, but buying houses is emotional, just like selling houses is an emotional decision as well. As much as people like to say they've got logic involved and I did my numbers and everything like that, it becomes emotional very much so.
And I mean, it's not like mine wasn't emotional. I saw it and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to give it the weekend. I'm going to come look at it again on Monday. Going to check it out. And then I think you called me that day and we're like, ooh, somebody else put an offer in. You gotta put up or shut up right away. And again, that wasn't Matt being unethical. I used the same voice for my fake unethical real estate agent as for Matt. That wasn't the case, but somebody else bid on the house, and it was kind of a, well, my logical plan has now gone out the window. This is the only house I've liked that we've looked at. It's got some unique character to it that I couldn't get anywhere else. Sure, let's pull the trigger.
So yeah, I'm just going to quick, because there was a couple of good comments here.
I'm still listening. I'm just going to be not in this room for a second.
I'm going to quickly run through the comments. I'm going to get everybody here real fast. This one, can you comment on houses being listed under their market value? So this is one that's come up a lot in my comment section of my videos. Okay, they're going to list it at $500,000. They know it's not going to sell for that. They're not going to accept anything under that type of thing. In a market where there are more buyers than sellers, it can be a very powerful tool to price a house lower than what you think it's going to sell for. And I'm not saying this is right, but it will get people in the door and it will get people lined up to write you offers. And you may end up getting, as a seller, more money than if you would list it at what you thought it was going to sell for. So there's that. But at the end of the day, if there were as many buyers as there were sellers, it wouldn't matter what you listed the house for, because somebody's not going to overpay for it if they can go buy another one down the street. And it's not going to go for crazy numbers. So, do I like it as a buyer's agent? No, it drives me absolutely insane. And I can say from my own experience right now, I am running with my head cut off, my hair on fire that I don't have, because we have to go to look at a lot of houses and lose a lot of offers. I am writing tons of offers and losing lots of them. I'm doing 4 times as much work as I did 2 years ago. So it is very emotionally draining. It's physically draining. It's mentally draining to do that. And it's very difficult for buyers. And I completely empathize with them on that, because I'm feeling it, going through it with them and going through this every single day, losing offers consistently. So it's frustrating.
And again, it's there's still the societal problem, which I'll keep harping on, which is, yeah, great, person A who was selling their house got an extra 20K, but they cost, 17 people an hour of their lives, if not more, which might have really more value overall. Private benefits, but it's at the expense of these other people who are being lied to, is probably a strong word, which is why I'm going to use it. They're being misled about what the actual deal is, which is not, it is good marketing in the sense that it does what the seller wants it to do, but it's not good capital G marketing in the sense that it's beneficial to society at large and
Yep.
creating more efficient markets.
So quickly, I'm going to try to get through a few more of these comments here so we don't get behind on the comments. Imagine if all the money that's been spent or on real estate could be spent on other parts of the economy. Yes. If we were using capital more efficiently, yeah, we could do some pretty crazy things in this country. Brendan, banks also need to come to talk, or banks also need to come in and be like, so you try to pay $800,000 with no condition for a house that we think is worth $600,000. Are you an idiot? Here's $300,000 in a loan. Good luck. That actually does happen. So if a bank, and this maybe people don't know, when you're buying a house, when you're getting financing on it, if you're not getting financing, that's a different story. But if you're getting financing, there is a system that they run it through. I believe the acronym is Emily. And Kevin, if you're still here, jump in on this one. And they look at it and go, is this selling for the expected range? And if the answer is no, this is not selling for what we anticipate this house is going to sell for, they will often call for an appraisal. And if the appraisal comes in lower, so we'll just make up numbers here, the offer is $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $400,000, then the bank will say, fine, we'll give you the mortgage based on what we think is the value of $400,000. You have to come up with the difference. And we are seeing this in hot markets where buyers are having to come up with $50,000, $100,000 cash to buy this house because the bank is not willing to loan on that. So that is happening actually, and can continue to happen. Another one here. So I know for myself, I took the deal with the highest offer with the least conditions, but to have my agent prey upon the people who already put in an offer and are asking them to reconsider is unethical. You know what? That's something that, and the second scenario is one that I can see why it was done in a hot market. I can see why.
Oh yeah,
for the sellers,
it makes
that's
so much
beneficial.
sense.
The way I'm doing my deals right now, if we are anticipating to get multiple offers, so we're not always, like on some of my houses, I don't think we're going to get multiple offers. But if we are, I will set a date and it will be, okay, Friday it's going to go on the market and Monday we are going to look at all offers. You get one opportunity to put your offer in, you put your best foot forward and you let the chips fall where they may. We're not going to phone other agents and keep going back and forth. The only exception to that would be if there was two offers that were really close and maybe there was like a possession day that didn't work for sellers, or there was one aspect of the offer that we didn't work, and we would go to both parties and say, hey, we're trying to decide between two offers here, well, you and one other, and here is what is giving us grief. Your possession date doesn't work for us, your inclusions doesn't work, whatever it is. Would you like to modify that offer to this, because this is what works for us? So that's the way I'm doing my offers right now. I think it is the fairest way to do it for both parties. But also understand too, I have a little bit of a challenge with that. Is the sellers have hired me to try to get them the most money they can for their house. That's what they've instructed me to do. And if the sellers say, no, Matt, this is how I want my house sold, I want you to do it this way, I have to make a decision. Do I want to represent these people anymore? Or do I do what I'm supposed to do and follow the instructions of my client? So that is another challenge too, is that if we get instructions, and Bart, you're in the same position as a lawyer, you may tell them, I don't like doing this, and you have to make a decision. Are you going to step away from these clients, or are you going to follow the instructions of your client?
You'd be surprised how often the answer is, I'm going to step away.
Yep.
But we also, lawyers have kind of similar but different rules from real estate agents. But I think that's what we're talking about, because I mean, if the government or the Real Estate Association of Canada, or whatever it's called, has a role, it has to be trying to see when individual incentives are misaligned with societal incentives. It has to be saying, you know what, Matt, I get it. If your client says, I want to do this, it's going to make your client the most money. It's going to make you the most money. And it's these people are still paying what they can afford. I mean, it's not like you're taking their money without their consent, but we still think that is not what should be happening. And so we're going to put regulations in place. And so I think that's what we're talking about. I don't think you will ever be able to, and I mean, it is a classic prisoner's dilemma, where the person who sells their house ethically versus the person who sells their house unethically. The person who sells ethically sometimes just gets that hollow feeling of, oh, good guy finished last, this other guy got a better deal, yada, yada, yada.
Kate, yes. I just saw a really good comment here from Varlin. I'm skipping a few and I will get back to the other ones here. But AI should price houses. And here's the thing. You can't do this house is worth X amount based on entirely mechanical processes, because there are factors in a house purchase that cannot be calculated. So I will use my own house as an example. We found a house that backed green space. My wife and I, that was really something that appealed to us, and we were willing to pay extra because of that. What is that worth? Right? How do you put a mechanical value on backs park equals X dollar type of thing? Because somebody, that might be actually a detriment to them. So I just showed a house to a family tonight, and backs to school. You would think that would be a huge benefit. For them, it's not. It's a detractor. So how do we account for that in pricing? So Varlin, I know exactly where you're going, but houses are bought on emotion, and you can't apply a mathematical formula, I don't think, to what X house is worth.
My house is a block away from the house my brother brought. That's worth something.
Yep.
What is stupid and emotional and dumb, and I think that it had some effect, is I live on, I don't want to dox myself. I live on a street that is named after royalty. He lives on a street that is named after a lesser rank of royalty. And when I first realized that, I thought it was funny. And like that probably had some kind of influence on it. But I don't think that's what we're talking about. Like, I don't think you have to automate house prices and say, this is what fair market value is. I do think that because I don't know anything about real estate, Matt helped a lot, but if I knew that the other person that was bidding was saying, $250, and I was like, okay, I'd pay $260, That's better than, oh, somebody else bid, they're asking for 300, I should say 305, even though the other bid was 240. Uh, and that's where the efficiency is. It's not necessarily an on high, this is what this house is worth, but it is you knowing what other people think the house is worth to
Yep.
try and calibrate where you're at.
So I'm going to quickly jump in here. A couple of questions. So Kevin just jumped in. Yes, mortgage insurers, CMHC, CAN, and Canada Guarantee all have auto valuation systems to verify purchases based on the address. So yet they do have an expected sale range. Now they don't tell us how the system works. I don't know if anybody truly knows besides the guy that programs it, but they do have that. And so that leads to the next question here is
Oh,
what happens basically, I missed it, where did it go, if
uh,
basically what happens if it doesn't meet that valuation. The banks will say to you, okay, again, the house is worth five, or we see it's only worth $400,000. They will still loan you based on a $400,000 purchase with the appropriate down payment. You have to come up with the balance. So if they're going to give you a mortgage up to $400,000, you have to come up with the difference of $100,000. So that is the way that system works there. Um, Brina, would it make sense to have regulations put a stop for this sort of marketing for underlisting a property? So, for example, the seller must accept any offer that comes in at list price or prices above the price. So, two things I'll put in this. One, a seller, it doesn't matter if it's a house or you're selling a banana, you can choose to sell to whoever you so choose for whatever reason you so choose, or not to sell to somebody. Bart's going to jump
eh,
in this here. And then,
that's not legal advice what Matt just gave you.
okay, sorry, Bart will jump in this, and he's going to tell me how wrong I am on this. The other side of things, I believe this exists across Canada, but it does in Saskatchewan. If I put Bart's house up for sale, and Bart says he wants $300,000 for his house, and he wants a possession day in 30 days, and he's going to include all the appliances. If an offer comes in for that or better, and Bart declines it, I can say, no problem, Bart, that's perfectly acceptable. That's your choice to no longer sell your house. But I have provided the services as we agreed upon. Bart, you're going to pay me my commissions to not sell your house because I provided the services agreed on. I don't know if you can force somebody to sell you a house, though. Bart, jump in.
Um, oh, I was just gonna say there are many reasons that you cannot not sell to somebody. What a bad double negative.
Discrimination, sorry. You cannot.
Anti-discrimination
Yes,
laws exist. Was my point
mean.
on that.
Yes, sorry. Absolutely for discrimination purposes. But if I just decide this is who I want to sell my house or not sell my house to.
I can sell my house to Matt for $50,000 less than I would sell it to Joran.
Well, of course we'd make Joran pay more money because he made a bunch of money in crypto. He's got the money to pay it. So another one here. For us, 8-foot ceilings are an automatic no-go. I know a buyer that was very important. 9-foot ceilings were acceptable. And yeah, how do you put a value on that? Again, there's lots of things in house purchases that person says this is a yay or nay, or I need to have this type of thing. So I think it's really difficult. I'd be really curious, Varlin, you've been talking about it a fair bit in terms of using blockchain. I'd be really curious to see how we could make a mathematical formula for houses. That would be interesting.
Blockchain is just a more efficient version of me saying that everything that's part of the deal should be public. Blockchain just helps you track it more effectively. Varlin, you can tell me exactly why I'm wrong in the comments. Feel free to tell me what a dumb simplification
should we make it
that was.
illegal to market that way? That's a really tough question, I think, because again, I've seen this before. There was a house that sold here in the city recently for $90,000 over asking, and in here that is an astronomically high number. I mean, I know in Toronto that would sound absolutely stupid, but in here that's ridiculous. And I think the purchase price or the asking price was around $400,000. So again, for us to essentially go 25% over asking is pretty crazy. And I talked to the agent. I said, like, did you guys underprice this here? And he goes, no, like we thought we priced it the right way. We thought this was where it should be priced, and the offers came in, and it was a number of offers. It wasn't just like one came out of left field. There were a number of offers that came in at higher prices than they expected. So sometimes you just get it wrong when you price something.
And again, the problem isn't houses going for over asking price. The problem is houses going for over asking price because the buyer doesn't have enough information. It sounds like that house had 3 or 4 bids come in over that. From my position as the overall authority on efficiency and public good, that sounds like it was fine.
Yeah, and it's really tough, and that's where I kind of sit on the fence sometimes. And should we make offers public or not? That's why I prefer you get one crack at this in terms of here's when we're going to look at offers, and you put your chips, you decide what you think this house is worth to you, and the best offer wins type of thing. I don't think it's perfect. I don't, but I think it's the fairest solution.
The least bad option.
The least bad option I think is a good one. So that is
and
one.
There's something to be said for simplicity as well. Somebody did mention I think it was Aaron mentioned a recent Nobel Prize in auction
I'm
theory
going to read that out.
Yeah, so I'm going to read that later. I bet it's cool as hell, but I also bet that implementing it in a market might be hard, because then you have to train all these real estate agents and have them explain to their clients, no, this guy did experiments and proved that this is more efficient. And the guy's like, I just want someone to pay me. Why is this so complicated?
I have to explain Nobel winning art mathematics to clients. I'm not going to be able to be a real estate agent. I'm going to have to go back and get some more training.
There's a balance between like efficiency and public good, and also just like usability.
So let's jump in here. I'm going to just move this ahead a little bit. I think I've got everybody's questions answered. But if I have missed something, I'm just checking in some comments here. Tougher standards. This was one that I think you and I were having a fun conversation with prepping for this show. So a couple of things we're going to talk about here is basically what happens if agents do something wrong, what should be the penalties, what should be the processes, and maybe some ways to make real estate agents better, so you can have higher quality agents helping you. So I'll go through this here. Tougher standards. If, as an agent, if I do something where I have breached my code of ethics, or if I were to do something, criminal code wise, that would be public knowledge. We publish everything on the Saskatchewan Real Estate Association's website. I know, Bart, for the lawyers, it's the same thing. If you have had an infraction, it's public knowledge. Does it need to be more publicly available? Do we need to find a better way to get this out there? Shave their heads. I would never have to worry about an infraction.
An issue that you're always going to run into is that there is a barrier. There's a barrier to entry for real estate agents, and there shouldn't be. I should be able to go and just be a real estate agent. Your job is not that hard. If we just lowered the requirements, then the free market would allow the most efficient real estate agents to get through. I'm kidding. Kind of. At the end of the day, if you have a self-regulating industry and the infractions that people are collecting, a real estate agent that has these infractions is still getting work and still collecting infractions and hasn't shipped up their behavior, that's a regulatory problem that your self-regulating industry is not taking the duty of care they owe to the public with enough seriousness.
Yeah. So I will talk entirely about Saskatchewan because I know it best, and I think, talk from experience. Our regulator loves nothing more than ticky-tack infractions. So if I, as an agent, do not put my brokerage, Royal LePage Regina Realty, on every piece of marketing I do, or it's, one click away. Like it's easily accessible for you to know, including my signs, what brokerage I work for. They will find me. Like $500, $1,000. They love it. Absolutely love doing that. They got one agent here because he did not put his brokerage on every single page on his website. They tagged him a fine for each page he didn't have it on his website. How is that better for the public, a ticky-tack infraction like that? But on the flip side, if I was charged or accused, I should say, of fraudulent activity, and I hired Bart because I know I probably did something wrong, and Bart's really good at his job, there's a very good chance our association will not pursue that as maybe vigorously as I would like it to be pursued. They may don't want to get in a fight. Let's just say that. And this is probably something I might even get in trouble for saying that. I probably opened myself up. Bart, might need to hire you for what I just said there. But it drives me nuts that they'll ticky-tack find the crap out of people, and that when egregious violations have happened, it seems like it's a lot harder to get disciplinary action. So it's frustrating, I guess we'll say. So one thing I thought about was a 3 strikes and you're out. If an agent has 3 infractions, they're no longer allowed to be a real estate agent. I thought that could be fun. Oh, Graham just jumped in. Well, I'll let you answer this, and then Graham's gonna jump in.
Yeah, the 3 strikes rule makes sense, but where do we draw the line? Because again, I have no information. I am not stating this as a fact, but if imaginary real estate governors is just looking at ticky-tacky stuff, and you accumulate 3 strikes because you forget to list your brokerage, and that gets you kicked out.
That's probably not good.
Yeah, so it becomes like an enforcement issue of encouraging the organization to pursue the hard stuff. I mean, it's like you hear about the tax collectors only going after people who can't afford to get tax lawyers.
Yep, very much so. So Kevin, no way I'd want a weed smoking high school dropouts drafting listings or offer to purchase contracts. Yeah, I would agree with that, and that's why I would like to actually see some more difficult barriers to entry. One thing I found that was very frustrating when I wrote my real estate exams was not that the examination material was difficult. I consider myself fairly sharp. What I found was frustrating was they worded questions in ways that made it difficult to read, per se, and double negatives in questions and things like that. I think simply so they could have more people answering questions wrong and say, see, we failed this number of people. And I just felt that wasn't really making better agents. It just who could read the questions better. But I am going to, Graham, this is going to get laughed out of the room, but I cannot for the life remember what MLS stands for. Okay, so first of all, Graham, is information MLS a public good? So MLS stands for Multiple Listing Service. If not, should there be different standards to benefit consumers? For example, standards of pictures, number of offers, accurate listings, new conditional sold status, everything else. So I will do my best to answer this question because this is going to be fun. So buckle up on this one. Multiple Listing Service is a service, a marketplace that is owned and operated by the Canadian Real Estate Association. For all intents and purposes, it's Amazon for houses. So agents across Canada have built the system up, and we are held to a specific standard, although I'd like, Graham's got some good points on photos, maybe it could be better. And this was where we came into a conflict with the Competition Bureau in, I believe it was 2015. Because to put your home on MLS, the requirement was you had to hire a realtor. We own the service. We decided how you got on the service. That's the way it was set up. Much like a store, they can decide what products they're going to put on the shelves type of thing. As agents, we got very efficient at selling houses. About 95% of all houses in Canada that sell on the MLS system. So what happened? The Competition Bureau came out and they said, no, that's basically monopolistic is kind of what they were going after, but they forced it through. They went after the Toronto Real Estate Board, TREB, and made it so that as a seller, you can, as long as you're willing to pay the fees associated with it, put your house on MLS without the service of an agent. So that is what MLS is. This is where I had a problem with that. I felt as where essentially we have a storefront and we can decide to put whatever products we want on that storefront and choose how they're to be presented and everything else. And we also have some standards that have to be upheld. So, but another one that Graham's touching on here is accuracy of information. And I know exactly where he's going because this is something I'll talk specifically about Saskatchewan, that we amalgamated our board from, we used to have Regina, Saskatoon, all different boards, and we amalgamated into Saskatchewan. So there were some rules that exist in some places that didn't exist in ours. In Regina, if a house had an accepted offer, it was marked as conditionally sold. Period. Full stop. Saskatoon did not have that requirement. A seller could choose to continue to promote it as an active listing. I understand for sellers why they would want this, because in Regina, as soon as you marked a house as conditionally sold, showing stopped. People knew it was conditionally sold. They wouldn't come look at it. If that deal fell apart, it was really hard to restart the process and get people back engaged and get buyers back to the table because they probably passed up and looked on. Plus, then it'd been on the market for potentially 20 or 30 days and it looks stale. So that's why Saskatoon allowed sellers the choice to not market as conditionally sold. Where this drives me nuts as a buyer's agent is I have to phone every single agent. If you looked at my text messages right now, the first question is this house available? Have you accepted an offer on it? Every single time. And if you ask me to go look at 10 houses, right now probably 6 of them have conditional offers. So buyers have been looking at these houses. They love them. They want to go buy them. They can't even go, well, you could go see them, but they're conditionally sold. So I'm not sure what the right answer to this is because I see why sellers would want this. I see why buyers don't want it. And again, we have to balance this marketplace. But Bart, I want to hear your thoughts on this in terms of access to the MLS system and how information should be presented. I'm going to read some comments here and then we'll jump back into the comments.
Okay, perfect. So as may have been obvious, I didn't know what MLS was coming into this, so I'm going to make all of these statements with the confidence of someone who has learned exactly one thing about something. MLS is a public good because everything is a public good. The world is a public place. So it strikes me that the idea of calling it anti-competitive or an antitrust is a problem. And I think it just pulls back to this idea of if real estate agents are going to be self-regulated, because I believe you're self-regulated. I hope I'm not saying that wrong, but I think you're like lawyers in that, like.
Yes and no. We have a regulatory system in place that is also in conjunction with a government regulator. So we have rules and regulations set out by the government. We do not have an entirely self-regulated process. It's kind of a hybrid.
All right. Well, similar idea. If you are going to put barriers to entry and therefore make it harder to compete with, so you get to keep your pay artificially high, using very big and aggressive language unnecessarily, then you have an obligation to do things that are inefficient but are better for the public at large. Is I think kind of, just like lawyers should do pro bono work, or other kind of public good work, real estate agents, because you are a protected industry, I think have an obligation to something like MLS should be public, should be accurate, should be done in a way that is beneficial not to the agents other than, oh, this is just way more convenient and more efficient, but also to the public at large.
Yeah, the issue I had with anybody can put their house on the market as long as they're willing to pay the fee. Where I have a little bit of an issue is if I put a house on the market and I do not list the information correctly, so square footage, for example, and the house is not that square footage, then I am obviously, if this is found out to be inaccurate, I'm going to get tagged, I'm going to get fined and disciplined as an agent. And of course, there's a whole lot of legal implications in there as well. A person that just puts up a house up for sale, then the buyer is going to have to chase them down and get that financial compensation potentially out of there. But I don't know if there's the same level of accountability as there is to agents when they have to ensure, for the sake of being able to continue their career, the information is accurate. So that's one area I worry about. ET talked about, I've actually seen 1% listings. Yes, there are many brokerages that will list at lower prices, and commissions vary across the country and within the cities, within regions. You'll see a lot of times, oh, well, it cost X amount to sell your house in Canada. Generally, that comes out of Toronto, which I will say right off the bat, they typically get higher commissions than we do here in Saskatchewan. It's not uncommon to see 5% total commissions in Toronto. Here in Regina, it's more like 3.5 to 4 typically is what you will see. So we have much cheaper houses and much lower costs for sale on that as well. But yes, there are 1% brokerages. There is as well, since that ruling from the Competition Bureau against us, you can do here in the province, we call it a mere posting. So Bart says he wants to put his house up for sale, but he does not want to use an agent. What we do is you then basically hire an agent to simply just put it on the system, and they charge you a fee for that, but you're on your own. So when I see him as an agent, it'll say treat this as a for sale by owner, or when I see the listing, it'll say treat this for sale by owner, phone and deal directly with the seller. So I don't deal with that agent who's just literally just put it up on the system. That's all they've done is upload the photos and the comments. That's basically it. Could we have an open source public MLS system and another private alternative? Apply your higher standards to the private alternative and let the other reflect our value for the comments. So in the United States, they have multiple MLS systems because they had a large number of essentially internal fights amongst real estate associations that led to a breakdown in the overarching MLS and their national governing body basically fractured. So you have MLS systems, multiple ones inside multiple cities. And where that becomes a challenge, if Bart is going to sell his house and he puts it up on MLS system A, agents or people that are looking at MLS system B will not see that. And that's where companies like Zillow have come in and capitalized, because they aggregate all the data together into one cohesive place for people to see. Here in Canada, we have one cohesive system, the MLS system, where 90+% of houses get sold. I think is, for all the deficiencies it has, that makes it better for the consumers to have one platform to purchase or to have access to the data. That's just my thoughts. I think it's better for the consumer to have one versus multiples. I do know where you're coming from. Bart, do you want to chime in on that one?
I agree that having that information in one convenient location is almost certainly better for the consumer. And I absolutely take the point of, we have built this beautiful garden of efficiency, and if we let everyone in who is going to misrepresent or not do it properly, it is going to stay in the garden and make things actively worse. So I am very much sensitive to that, because it's very hard to penalize someone who doesn't care about their reputation for putting a misattribution or an error in their square footage or anything like that. So I do think that at the end of the day, MLS is going to be better off. And if that means that private sellers are having a more difficult time, I think I'm fine with that, because it's much easier for me to deal with a real estate agent than a private seller, because typically, for very similar reasons, I mean, real estate agents have done this before, have a system in place, aren't drafting their own documents.
Yeah.
For something like that, where you're going to be involving so many other moving pieces, I am okay with creating somewhere that makes things easier for the professionals, because I am highfalutin on my ivory tower.
One thing that I will talk about a lot with my own clients and people in general, you can buy your own house and you can sell your house. You do not need me to help you buy and sell a house. What I provide to you is experience. I provide convenience. Those I think are the two biggest things. I have helped a lot of people buy and sell houses. I know what to expect to, in terms of, hey, if we write an offer on this house, here's where I think things are going to fall, what's going to happen. Or here's what we need to look for in a house. Here's what we can expect to happen in this transaction. And also, hey, you need you need a team to help you buy a house. So if you are new to this, we're going to get you set up with a great mortgage broker, a home inspector, a sewer inspector, somebody who can do foundations here. That's a big thing in our market. Foundations are a huge problem in our market. Appraisers, if we need to get an appraiser in, lawyers, mortgage brokers, all of those people, I can provide you convenience because I have somebody in all of those industries. And I use those people because I have confidence that they are professionals and experts in their field. That's what I provide as an agent. But you can sell your house and you can buy your house. You don't need me to help you do that. So, Graham brought up a really good one too here. Should real estate agents salary based on a percentage commission in a world of ever increasing house prices? They aren't doing more work. If you live in Toronto, for example, and a house price goes up $80,000 in a year. Would a different approach such as salaried employees working within a company address some of that anti-competitive behavior? This is interesting because I've seen both sides of the equation. I have had sellers say to me, Matt, if you get more money, I want to pay you more. I want you to get more money because I have hired you to sell this house for me and get me as much money as I can. I've had people literally say, how can I pay you more for getting more money for the house? Or can I put like a bonus structure in place basically to pay you more if you get me more money? I've been asked that. In terms of increasing prices, yes, as house prices go up, agents get paid more. I will tell you right now, in the hot market we're in, people have told me, oh, you must be so excited because you're going to make more money. Yes, I'm going to probably do more deals and make more money this year. I'm probably going to do 4 times as much work. How much I'm actually getting paid, quote unquote, per hour of work is probably going to be less this year than I've gotten paid in previous years because we're going to do so much work writing so many offers to not get them accepted. So what should we do? Should we place salaries? Because maybe this is something too, people don't understand about how agents work basically. So I work essentially as an independent contractor under a Royal LePage banner. That Royal LePage provides some additional resources and services that I as an agent like, but I'm essentially an independent business for all intents and purposes. And so then if all of a sudden Royal LePage Regina Realty is going to hire employees, then I guess that's a whole different animal. Bart, I'd be curious to see what you have to say on that.
Like so much, there's so many parallels in my industries. It's hard to make sure I keep everything kind of straight or on tack, because I think why this percentage thing comes into play is because if the idea of okay, so a salaried Matt Pfeiffer just means that either A, they are going to have to start charging flat fees for every sale and transaction, which is going to completely change the face of the housing market. Or B, the people taking the percentage is just going to be Royal LePage, and then diluting that amongst all of the employees. So a house, the house going up $80,000 in Toronto doesn't implicitly mean that more work is being done. But at least theoretically, that does mean that either more offers are being written, or something else is happening, or something else might be happening where the real estate agent is doing more work. So trying to change that process when it's so ingrained is just such a major change that I don't know if the juice would be worth the squeeze, because I don't even know what it would even do in theory. Though, you can go read an old Freakonomics book and realize that real estate agents typically end up selling or waiting much longer to sell their houses. At least they did back then than they do for their clients, because the difference to a seller between $210,000 and $230,000 is $20K. To to Mr. Pfeiffer, it's 200.
Yeah, $200. Yep. That, at least I read the book and I know exactly where you're coming from. I'd be curious to know, is that because they're holding out for a higher dollar, or because they are not as antsy for whatever reason to sell, in terms of, I've been here, I've done this before, I have dealt with offers, I know sitting and waiting I might get a better one. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as a counter argument. Another good question here. Is there a way to find out final selling prices of houses for the everyday Joe without having to go to MLS? Or is that information not public? So, couple of things. One, if you would like to get sale information, some jurisdictions, I believe BC, you can. There, it is public information. In Saskatchewan, my understanding of it is, these reason sale prices are not published is, I have bought XYZ house. I bought Bart's house. Bart may not care to publish the information, what he sold his house for, but I now own that house and I have not agreed to make that information public. So you would need, at least under Saskatchewan laws, that the buyers would have to agree to make that information public. It's not the sellers that have that decision. But like we talked about earlier in the show, you can go look up ISC and you can infer pretty accurately what that house probably sold for.
I also, like, I don't know if real estate agents in the last 10 years, as prices have been going up, have seen their standards of living, relatively speaking, increase because, you know, you are reaping all these benefits. Or if, generally speaking, a real estate agent makes 25% above median income, and that has been true for as long as there have been real estate agents. I think that's where you would have to look at to figure out if this percent commission is unfairly benefiting real estate agents or not. And I don't, like, I have zero idea what the answer to that question
I don't either.
but
that would be interesting.
That would be the thread I would follow to find out.
Yep. Another question here. What do you think about having the same broker for sellers and buyers, good and bad? So let's walk through some scenarios. First of all, I will always tell you, if you watch any of my videos, you want to have your own representation when you're buying, because the sellers have hired the seller's agent to get as much money as they possibly can for the house. That's what they've hired them to do. So when you use the listing agent, is there a conflict of interest? And yeah, there can be. But I'm going to walk you through some scenarios here. So I have Bart's house up for sale, and Bart has said to me, Matt, we need you to go out and get the best price we can. But at the end of the day, he's asked me to sell his house. That's the primary goal. What if I have the exact right buyer for that house? If I am no longer allowed to represent both parties, is that better for the buyer who has said, Matt, to me, I trust you because I believe you know what I want, and you're going to get me the house I want, and you're going to take care of me. If I have to turn that client away because I'm representing the seller, is that better for that buyer? And this is more of a, I guess, a hypothetical question. There are jurisdictions that is prohibited. BC, you cannot have one agent acting for both parties. So if I have Bart's house up for sale and my buyer says, I would like to buy Bart's house, that's the perfect house for me, I have to say, go find another agent. I can't represent them. In Saskatchewan, if that happens, I am in what's called limited dual agency. And now my mandate changes from when I'm representing the seller to, represent the seller's best interest, or when I'm representing the buyer, represent the buyer's best interest. My mandate now becomes to find the fairest deal between two parties. I cannot privilege one or the other. And I will tell you, this is a very difficult line to walk. I have struggled with this. It's not easy to do, and I've only done it a handful of times. And I struggle. I do. It's something that is not easy to do. I don't know what the better solution is. I will always recommend you have your own buyer's agent, but what if your buyer's agent also has the perfect house for sale? What happens then? Bart, fire away.
Don't do it. Don't. If you have an agent and they say, I want to also be the seller's agent, tell them to fuck off. You deserve, sure. Yeah. I would never be two people's lawyer. If somebody comes to me and says, I want you to be on a real estate transaction, even if somebody says, I want you to do both sides of this deal, I say no. And real estate agents are different than lawyers, but 99 times out of 100, you want your own representative.
Yep.
Do I think it should be illegal? I don't know. Maybe that 1% thing happens more often than 1% of the time. But if I were you, I would ensure that my agent was representing me and not representing somebody else.
Yep. So, and I agree with you, Bart. I do. I would say let's get, whenever possible, get your own representation. I don't know if it should be illegal, because again, what if you have a very specific niche that you're looking for, and I just happen to have that house for sale as well.
You know what I would recommend people do in that circumstance? Go find another buyer's agent. Be like, Matt, that's great. I'm excited. I don't want to put you in a weird position. I'm going to go find another buyer's agent. I'm really excited to see this house that you're selling.
Yeah. So
that's what I would recommend people do.
And we actually do have a process like that in my own office. We actually invert it though. So what we do is, if I have a buyer for my own listing, we tell the sellers, here's what we can do for you. They have the option. It's always their choice. But we say to look at, if you're concerned about a conflict of interest, we're going to provide you another agent to present all offers and explain these to you so that you can have representation as the seller. So we just flip that basically in our office is how we do it. And what we typically do is we have our office manager. Now, our office is maybe a little bit unique, where our office manager does not actively sell real estate day to day. He is a real estate agent, but does not, other than maybe 1 or 2 deals a year for a friend. So he essentially is completely impartial because he's not dealing with other clients. And he also is a far more experienced agent than many of the agents in our office, because he's been in the industry for quite a while. So as a seller, you're not taking a lesser agent. You're getting a highly qualified person to help represent you. So that's kind of the way we handle that. Brandon had one. Would the seller's agent take a pay cut if I don't use a buyer's agent? Would the seller's agent? No, I don't think the seller's agent's going to give you any break. Why would they take less money unless they decide to, not take all of the commission? That would actually be, typically they'll say to the sellers, hey, if I have my own buyer, instead of charging you 5%, I might charge you 4%. I've seen that done before. So the seller's agent may do that. Again, like I think Bart talked about it, are you getting the best representation or just getting the cheapest representation? In that case, Al Pacino, hi guys, where do you think Montreal real estate will be in the next 5 years? Do you think the government will implement the obligation of doing an inspection? I feel like many people are taking really high risk not doing that to win an offer. So where do I think Montreal real estate is going to be in 5 years? My crystal ball doesn't work that well, but if we continue the direction that Montreal has gone, where they have been very low in inventory, and this has been a problem that's been coming for about 6-7 years. This did not just happen overnight. 5 years ago, there would be 30,000 houses in the market for sale. There's 11,000 today. And it's going to take years of extra supply to even balance that out. So if that continues to be a problem, low supply, prices will continue to go up. Do you think the government should implement an obligation doing an inspection? No, I don't. Do I think it's a good idea to write an offer on an inspection? No, I sure as heck don't think that's a good idea. But you as an individual can choose to do whatever inspections you want on the house or put on whatever conditions. That's your choice. Would I recommend it? No. I've told people if they want to write unconditional offers, I don't feel very comfortable doing that. With the very, very exceptional circumstances when I know a buyer has the experience and the capital to do so. I've done that once, written an unconditional offer, and I knew the buyer had the experience and the capital resources to write that offer. But I will typically recommend no on that. And Sojourner, thank you very much. You've been on here for 2 hours. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us. Bart, your thoughts on that? Should the government make it mandatory to do financial or to do conditions like a home inspection? And then we're going to answer 2 more questions. I think we'll wrap this up here because we've been going for over 2 hours here.
Well, you have. I've been on for like, say, hour 45.
Yeah.
Uh, where's the Montreal real estate going to market be in 5 years? 45 degrees north, 73 degrees west. Do I think the government will implement? I was
Love
very
it.
happy with that one.
Love it.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the civil code. I don't know anything about Quebec. Do I think, generally speaking, there should be an obligation of doing an inspection? Um, so at the end of the day, I think that a lot of what I've said is going to remain true. Uh, Philosophically, yes, I think the government should mandate an inspection because, like Matt said,
Shouldn't you?
99% of people, yeah, 99% of people should have an inspection. You've done one person because you're like, okay, cool, you are the kind of person who that's fine with. If I write an offer without an inspection, the seller is then getting a benefit because, okay, cool, people are competing and now they're not going to do an inspection. I'm going to make off even more like a bandit. And who is going to end up screwed if it turns out that that house has a sewer line that doesn't work? It's going to be, sure, the buyer, and, you know, oh no, egg on my face, I should have learned my lesson. But that buyer doesn't learn the lesson for the entire purchasing market. And then they're still going to run into the problem of somebody has to pay for it.
Yep.
And is it that buyer that's going to end up paying for it, or is it, you know, an insurance company that's going to end up paying for it, or does the buyer who bought the house without the inspection not able to afford to repair it, and now you just have a house with a busted up sewer line in downtown Montreal that is going to be impossible to deal with and makes the neighborhood actively worse for 8 months until it gets dealt with?
ET can't get a mortgage without an inspection. I would like to talk to the mortgage broker, but my understanding is that is not true. At least from my experience writing an awful lot of offers over the years, I have never had a single bank ask to see a home inspection ever. In every deal I've ever done, I've never had them say we'd like to see the copy of the inspection report. Whether that's a good thing or not is a totally different question. But I don't believe as of right now, a bank is going to mandate you doing a home inspection to get a mortgage. Do I think it's a good idea? No, I don't think it's a good idea at all. And I've had buyers who have wanted to do things that are maybe not against or not what I recommend, and I will actually get it in writing that they're going against what I've recommended. So if a buyer really wanted to waive a condition that I don't think they should do, I would actually have it in writing, them, acknowledging that I didn't think this was a good idea and they have chosen to do this anyways. I also may just say, sorry, I can't help you. If I had a person come in and say, I want to write an unconditional offer, and I knew that they were not in the position to make that, I'd just say, sorry, I don't think I'm the right agent for you.
Yeah. So of course, Matt would say, I would never do this. I think that's a bad idea for people to do it. But of course, the government shouldn't make you do the right thing. You should be able to do whatever you want. Just don't do it with me.
Yeah, that's basically it. I'm very much I want the government to leave me alone as much as possible. And if I decide to make dumb decisions, that is entirely my choice to make dumb decisions. So, do you foresee the stress test increasing? If so, by what percentage? What is the risk to the housing market as a whole with increasing interest rates? Graham, you should have checked in. Now, Graham's my buddy. Graham, you should have checked in like an hour and a half ago when we talked about the stress test. So I'm going to call you out on this. But do you foresee the stress test increasing? The government is going to review it every year. And yes, I think it will continue to increase proportionally to interest rates. What is the risk to Canadian housing as a whole with interest rates increasing? If they jump like 3% in a year, that's a really big problem. If they increase slowly over time, no, I don't think it's a major risk to the market. Usually you see interest rates go up in quarter point bumps. Most people can continue to afford that. And with the stress test, in theory, right now, a buyer should be able to withstand like a 3% interest rate. That's what they're qualifying under, almost 3% higher than what the rates are. Like you can get about a 1.5% interest rate on a variable rate now, and you're having to qualify in 5.25. So that's a pretty big spread that in theory buyers should be qualified to spend substantially more than what they're actually paying, which, I mean, that might be mind-boggling to people, but they can withstand significantly higher rates than what they're actually paying right now, in theory. I'm going to jump this ahead a little bit here. I'm going to go to the what happens if questions. Bart, these are for you. We're going to rip through these fairly quickly because we've been on forever. So first question was, this is a buyer where they bought a house. They did not put any conditions on the offer. They put a $50,000 deposit on the offer, and now they would like to back away. What happens to them? They have written an unconditional offer. The sellers have accepted it, and they decide they don't want to buy that house anymore.
Get legal advice. This is very general. It might be wrong. Do not use this, what I'm about to say, as the basis for any decision that you ever make. But generally, very widely speaking, if you make an unconditional offer and you back out, and say the seller ends up selling the house, if you offered 50 and they sold it for 40, you may be open to civil litigation, where they could sue you for the $10,000 difference between what you were going to pay and what they actually received. Presumably, there is also, say, an option for specific performance, which is where specific performance is basically a option where the court can say, you have made this deal, you have to follow through on it. And so generally that was more available back in the day compared to nowadays. You see less and less specific performance being ordered, and you see more and more damages. Especially with a buyer backing out, I think you would be hard pressed as the seller to get an order for specific performance, where the court would make someone actually buy your property. I think that if you were the buyer and the seller backed out and you really wanted specific performance, you could try and chase that down based on, there's a bunch of factors that came out over the last bunch of years about, the uniqueness of the property. One interesting thing I did find was there was a Vancouver case where, because the volatility of the Vancouver market, or because the Vancouver market was so volatile, the courts did enforce a specific performance on the seller to have to sell to the buyer, because it was impossible to quantify in damages what the buyer lost out on when the seller backed out of the deal. So they said, no, we can't quantify it. It's too crazy out there. You just have to sell it to them for the deal that you made.
That's interesting. That is really interesting where they actually force them to sell it. I'm gonna give you the next question, but I'm gonna answer one of the questions in the comments here real quickly. So the question for you, Bart, you can take a second to chew on this, is a buyer has signed a purchase agreement for a new construction house last year. The possession date, because it's a large apartment building, is going to be at least a year out, 2 years out type of thing. With the increase in costs, the builder is going back saying, I would like a higher price now for this property. So chew on that for 2 seconds here. And Graham, this has been great, guys. Will you do round 2? Bart, do you want to do round 2 on this at some point in the future?
Yeah, I can imagine that'd be a good time. I'll try and see if I can get a better internet connection from the hop, but
we might do this one in person, because we could actually potentially do that in person next time around. But yeah, fire away on this. The builder wants to change prices.
Talk to a lawyer. Generally speaking, if you're dealing with a builder, there is probably a contract that has been signed. That contract governs far more than anything I could say. Maybe the contract has a specific provision for this circumstance. If that is not the case, again, talk to a lawyer. But generally speaking, if you say, no, I don't want to pay you more, I want you to do this, and the builder walks away, an option may be to hire a different builder and then sue the old builder for damages, being how much you had to pay the new builder compared to how much you were supposed to pay the old builder. If the builder is saying, I'm going to have a builder's lien unless you pay me more, talk to a lawyer, get that removed. But generally speaking, your options are really tell them no, and then if they refuse to do any more work, hire somebody else and try and sue them for the difference later. And that's about it. I mean, like you could try and sue again for specific performance, but a judge is likely, I think, going to say, no, this is fine with damages. You don't need this person to build it. You just need somebody to build it, and they can owe you for the difference. Now the problem with that is, if you hire somebody else to do it for $80,000 and you were supposed to pay $40,000, and you sue the old builder for that $40,000, can they pay a $40,000 judgment?
Yeah.
Who knows? Hire builders that are established. Make sure that you look through your contract to ensure that if this circumstance does come up, it's been discussed in advance. Talk to a lawyer, and if you think that, oh shoot, I'm going to have to pay somebody to do this, I'm going to have to pay more than I intended, and this guy is, my dad's uncle who has a Chevy Silverado and his tools to his name, so he's not going to be able to pay any judgment I get against him. Maybe you should have hired somebody better.
Well, I'm going to give you one more question, and then I answer one question from the comments, and this will be kind of the last question we'll take for the night. Actually, we answered this one. This was, but I'm going to bring it up again. What makes a good real estate lawyer? Was the question that was asked, so we'll just quickly go through this. But Taylor, I think if inspections were mandatory, there'd have to be a tighter grip on regulating home inspectors. I cannot speak for all of Canada, but for Saskatchewan, there is no minimum standard or qualifications to be a home inspector. Anybody can be a home inspector, and the liability if the home inspector is incorrect in what his findings are or doesn't find ends at the returning of the cost of the home inspection. So home inspector misses a significant problem in the house, the home inspector is only required to return to you the cost of home inspection, $350 roughly here. Maybe $500 is what you're going to be. So Bart, do you want to answer or tag on either one of those questions? We'll make that the last one for tonight.
If you do make it mandatory, then yeah, you do have the government saying home inspection is a thing that we are now giving basically a free financial support to. So yeah, again, if your industry is getting artificial boons from the government, then you do owe the public more. So Taylor, I do think that you're probably right that something would have to change if you do make inspections mandatory. What makes a good real estate lawyer? It is a real estate lawyer that you are excited to work with and makes you feel comfortable. What makes a good real estate lawyer? They provide you the service that you expect for a cost that you can appreciate. If you're looking for a real estate lawyer, if you're looking for a real estate lawyer and you ask, 2 or 3 questions up front, not about specific legal advice, but about what you can expect, and you don't like their answers, you're probably not going to drive, and that's okay. But generally speaking, if you are looking for a real estate lawyer in your city and you find someone who is an actual lawyer and has real estate practice on their website, you will probably be okay. Check your local law society and see if they have any complaints against them.
Yep.
But what you are personally looking for can be matched out there. Just make sure that you aren't afraid to advocate for yourself, which can be hard. But it sucks because, like real estate agents, you don't really have a ton of chance to get used to what you want. I can shop at 6 different supermarkets in a year and find the one that I like. You only get really one chance for your real estate agent and your real estate lawyer. So do your research, talk to your friends, see who they used, see if they've liked who they've used in the past, and see if you have similar wants and needs.
I've had this before, but I think this applies both to real estate or lawyers and agents. But I've had people ask me, well, how do I know if XYZ builder is a good builder? And I always tell them, especially in a center like mine here in Regina, where the market's very small and everybody knows everybody, go find a builder, or in this case, go find a real estate agent or lawyer that has been doing this for a while. You want somebody that's having experience, and Bart's, newer in the industry, and I know Bart is very good at what he does. But at the same time too, there's a lot of really good lawyers that have been doing this for a long time, and they've been doing it because they're good at it. So look.
And I work at a
very experienced
firm.
Yes.
That has been around for so long.
Yes. So,
and that's another benefit. I could be a year out of real estate school, but I work at Royal LePage, so that if something goes wrong, I can go talk to Matt Pfeiffer or whoever owns Royal LePage and get that experience kind of downloaded. Not to say that, if there's a lawyer out there who's a year out of law school, has hung their own shingle, they might be the best real estate lawyer in the business. I can't know for sure. But for me, I am pretty fresh out of law school, all things considered. I've only been doing this for 3 or 4 years, but I work at a firm that's been around for 50, 60, 70.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. I should actually look into that. And so that's, if that's something you're concerned about, going with somebody who's been around and doing something for a good amount of time, there are worse heuristics to use.
Yeah. So the person that's been there and done that, they've probably been doing that for a long time for a reason, because they're good at what they do. So whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a mortgage broker, whether it's a real estate agent, whether it's a home builder, experience matters. You can't replace experience. You truly cannot. There are a lot of great home builders, lawyers, real estate agents that are new in the business, but go and then also ask people that have dealt with that person. What has their experience been? All that kind of stuff. I've got a video I did on questions to ask a real estate agent. Maybe I'll have to do one on questions to ask a lawyer in the future. So, but Bart, any closing thoughts on tonight other than we need to get you the GoFundMe campaign for your Wi-Fi?
This has been great. I had a true blast. I look forward to being able to do this again, hopefully sooner rather than later. I do appreciate everybody's patience. And if you do want to see if it was Matt's fault, follow the link that I just put in the YouTube comments, buy tickets to the play that I am putting on this weekend, and you'll see where the connection issues really were.
As well, guys. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Bart, for coming on. This was a ton of fun. This is the first time I've done this as a group setting, so I kind of expected some technical difficulties. Maybe next time we can do this in person. I can set up some chairs and we can kind of do this as a conversation together, and that will reduce some of the issues with the Wi-Fi connection. By that time we should have restrictions lifted, but I like to do these live chats once a month, and I try to announce them a couple of weeks ahead and get questions and topics and things like that. But I want to make this a regular part of Prairie Real Estate, is these live chats and answering your questions and bringing on lawyers like Bart and mortgage brokers and home builders, home inspectors, things like that. That's what I want to make this for. But it's for you guys. It's to answer your questions and get engagement with you guys. And these don't happen without you guys. So especially there's been some people been here basically the entire 2 hours, 2.5 now. Thank you so much for taking the time and the patience with us on this. This was our first crack at it, and I think overall went good. So I just want to say thank you, everybody. We will wrap this up here, and everybody have yourselves a fantastic evening. See you guys later.